Hello friends, Elizabeth Vowell and Scottie Hunter coming to you from our WAB digital newsroom. We are doing another edition of our segment. We're taking you kind of behind the scenes of our 9 News investigators and some of the big stories that we've covered recently. Scottie, one of the biggest stories that we've had was the May flooding, and that was an event that just kind of came out of nowhere. It caught everyone off guard and just kind of left us all going, not again. Not again.
You know, absolutely. And that's one of those things. I always joke about that. Here in our area, it seems like it's never the named storms. It's never the big things that we see during hurricane season. It's always just the freak rain events.
Yeah, and I was talking with a friend that I ran into afterwards who had a business who flooded in that May event. It was like, oh, you know, just the casual 10-inch rains that we tend to have around here, which unfortunately are just becoming kind of part of the norm. They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And that's led into a lot of the questions we had. Yeah, we want to show you some of the video from that night.
Of course, you know, that's Blue Bonnet right there across from the Mall of Louisiana. There's some of the water rescues that were happening. I mean, it was just an awful night. And Liz, you guys were on air, you know, didn't even know it going into the 10 o'clock show, but stayed on air. I think it was past midnight.
We were on air till about 1:30 in the morning until the rains kind of really finally subsided and the initial threat was over. But I mean, just seeing these images came in for me was just, I know people going through this was just mind-numbing, and it's heartbreaking to see these families again, because this is an image that, you know, took me right back to 2016. And for a lot of people, we were talking about, while this wasn't the event as widespread as what we saw in 2017, there were people that this was their 2016, that there were apartments that flooded that never flooded before, businesses that had never flooded before. But there were also a lot of people we talked to that went, this is the third, fourth, multiple time that I have flooded since 2016.
Right.
So that left a big question for a lot of people of why are we seeing these major flooding events? Of course, and we'll say that with a caveat of when you have the 10-inch rains, as our city officials pointed out, and as many people pointed out, even if your drainage systems are operating at the best absolute capacity, you get a huge rainfall like that, anything is going to be overwhelmed.
Right. And over the years, I've talked with city and parish officials about these kind of rain events that we've seen, and it's so weird because every single one of them is so different. Like you can't really look at one and judge what's going to happen the next time based on what happened that time. It's just, it depends on where the rain falls and how much of it falls in a certain spot.
Right.
So it's always kind of a gamble or a crapshoot whenever you see these rain events happen. But obviously with the 9 News investigators, we wanted to kind of look at this event and see kind of what happened and, you know, really see the scope of this. And I know we requested some of the 911 calls from the parish just to kind of see what people were dealing with. I know they said that they had gotten more than 800 calls that night. So it was like a really, really crazy night. So we have a couple of those that we do want to play.
Yeah, let's take you kind of inside some of the chaos of that night.
911, where's your emergency?
Highland Road in P2. There's what looks like a black Suburban that went off the road, and it's pretty covered in water. I don't know if the people are okay or not.
I was driving on Jefferson Highway, and there's a car stuck in the ditch.
Hello? 911.
Yes, my car is stuck on Corsi in the rain. I can't get out. I can't.
Where are you at, sir?
Hello?
Sir, how far is the water up?
It's almost to the door. It's not coming in yet.
Are you able to get out?
There's no place for me to go.
And that's just a couple of those 800 calls that were taken by first responders. And Scottie, you had some other stats of just how widespread this event were. Talk to me about some of the other things that first responders saw that night.
Yeah, so there were about 800 calls. We do know there were about more than 250 water rescues, like some of the ones that we saw from that night. Also, when we looked at the damage assessments after that, we realized that there were, I think it was around 693, so almost 700 homes that were damaged. And I don't think there was a count on the businesses, but I mean, this is something that, again, significant damage and not a lot of time. So it's, you know, it shows the power of these rain events and just how crazy they can get. I mean, this is really a couple of hours, and you know, all of these people took on water yet again, as you mentioned. Since 2016, we've seen, you know, a handful of these events, and they just kind of seem to keep popping up out of nowhere, it seems. A lot of times that is kind of what we face. You know, it just starts raining and it sets up and it just won't move, and then people are flooded again.
Yeah, before you know it. So, and again, after all of this, when this happens, the first question everyone asks is why? Why is this happening again? And what are we doing to prevent this from happening again? As we mentioned, any system is going to be overwhelmed. And when you get just 10 inches in a couple of hours, that's a tremendous amount of rain. But there are steps that can be taken to make sure that we are, kind of ahead of the game. So that was something else that you wanted to look into. What did you find out when you talked to, focused on East Baton Rouge Parish specifically?
Right. Yeah, and that is some of the kind of the frustration. I know we've been dealing with a lot of these issues since that May flooding event. There have been a lot of parishes that have tried to figure out what's next, what can they do to prevent this. But also there's frustration from business owners, from homeowners, from people that are out there in the community. They're like, hey, we went through this in 2016. There was all this money. They had heard about a lot of that money that was approved in the years that followed, like 2017, and they were like, okay, where's that money and why is it not being used to fix it?
And not just where's the money, but where's the work?
Where's the work? Why aren't they doing anything right now to keep people from flooding, to keep that water out of homes and businesses? And so that was another thing that we took to the city and the parish to try and find out some answers, again, specifically for East Baton Rouge Parish.
So you also have, right here, we're going to play some clips. We have some reaction of people who flooded and also some of those answers that you got.
Yeah, and some of the questions I took to the Drainage and Transportation Director.
All right, let's play that for you now.
How hard is it to see people go through this again and again? I mean, we see it so often.
Well, it's very frustrating, and I know it is to people who are being impacted due to these water conditions. We're doing everything we can to try to get projects out to minimize that flood risk.
Within 45 minutes, from nothing to 3 feet in 45 minutes.
It's sad, man. I can't even get to my house. I can't go to work. I can't do nothing.
It's time for action now. People are tired. I'm tired. I'm tired of going through this. I'm tired of this whole crap of, hey, we've got the money. Show me where the money went.
All this money's in the bank, billions and billions of dollars. And so at this point, it's really more of an execution issue than it is breaking through the bureaucracy or trying to find the funding, which are normally the holdups. Those things have all been eliminated in this case.
So the money is there at this point. What is some of the continued holdup?
The funding, federal dollars that we've been able to receive has been in place by the congressional delegation. We are working through that process to get the funds out and do design and get the projects under construction. But you have to follow the process that the federal government sets forth, or if you don't, you lose those funding. Heck, I'm not happy with some of the processes, but I have to follow those to make sure we meet those requirements.
All right, Scottie, so that was Fred Rayford, who is the Director of Drainage and Transportation for East Baton Rouge Parish. And just kind of being blunt about it. If, yes, the money's there are projects planned, but unfortunately these processes can be a little slow.
Yeah, it's not always quite as simple, he says, as just money in your own pocket. If you have something around the house that needs to be fixed up, obviously you cut a check and it gets done. But he's saying, there are so many things that has to happen through the Corps of Engineers, through the federal government, that they have checks and balances to make sure that you're spending this money on exactly what you said you were, that you're being good stewards of that money. Because if you don't, they can take it back. You'll have to reimburse that money, and then, obviously that's going to hurt taxpayers. So that's something that he says he wants to avoid. Yes, he realizes it's a problem. Yes, he realizes that, this is taking longer even than he wants, and that obviously than a lot of people want. But he says, they have to do it right. They have to do it, correctly when they do this, or else they could be punished if they don't do it correctly. Cold
comfort for someone who might be gutting their house right now. But I mean, at the end of the day, that is an answer that we get from city officials. But that's not all they're doing. So Scottie, you've in our 9 News Investigators under the tab on WAP.com, you've got these resources and a little more on some stuff that actually got going recently.
Yeah, this is the story that we did. This is the main one that we are talking about right now that we filed through the 9 News Investigators. And it's after that story aired, I think it was the next week, I think a couple of days later, you see here the parish was already taking action. They approved in the Metro Council about $20 million worth of work that they then immediately started the very next day, if I'm not mistaken, to try and get some of these issues taken care of. And you see right here the 5 tributary projects. These are really some of the things that they are trying to focus on first. They say that these are going to alleviate some of the flooding that people are seeing across the parish, and they really want to focus on those particular projects. Now, out of these 5, I believe it's 3 that they're going to try to push through within the next month to advertise and go ahead and get people working on these projects. But they say that is going to be something. Obviously, these alone won't solve the problem, but they're also going to look at the Comey diversion project. Of course, we know that has been going on for quite some time now. We often talk about how delayed that project has been, but again, that is not the parish that is taking over that project. That is the state. Eventually, the parish will kind of manage it after it's done, but the initial construction on that Comey, that is the state right now, and that's going through the Corps of Engineers. So that is the work that was already been approved and is starting already as we speak to try to keep that water out of folks' homes. But again, you know, Liz, it's just one of those things that everybody wants answers and they want them right now. And sometimes, unfortunately,
solutions, not just answers, but
yeah,
solutions.
Answers, solutions, and unfortunately, that's not always something that you can get, you know, right away.
So an interesting look at that whole process. And again, I know that's a frustration that a lot of you had at home. We're trying to dig into it, trying to get some more answers for you. And one we'll continue to watch because goodness knows, we hope we don't see another flood event like this, but chances are we're going to see another rain event. It is hurricane season. So Scottie Hunter with our 9 News investigators, our lead investigator, thank you. And thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time as we take you behind the scenes of the 9 News investigators.